Tashdile, this is Sakina Bhatt and welcome to Tibet This Week, a weekly news on Tibet, His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Central Tibetan Administration. Let's look at the headlines. His Holiness the Dalai Lama begins three-day teaching at the request of Russian Buddhists. His Holiness the Dalai Lama expresses condolences for Tengboché Rinpoche. China sentences Tibetan singer to 6 years in prison. Ancient Chinese historical records show Tibet as foreign independent country, Chinese scholar argues. The Tibet Museum initiates global selfie campaign, His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Me. Taiwan Cultural Ministry organizes event on Tibet and Mongolian culture. Representative Ngodup Tsering joins Michael Van Val's Knighthood ceremony. His Holiness the Dalai Lama began a three-day teaching on Thursday this week. At the virtual teaching requested by the Russian Buddhist, His Holiness talked about the long-standing historical and civilizational affinity that Tibet and Mongolia shared. The virtual teaching began with recitation of Heart Sutra by the monks of Kunse Choni Monastery and Buryat Rinpoche Pakshi Gandin Sheduk Chogarling Monastery. Senshab Nawang Dorji founded Kunse Choni Monastery in St. Petersburg with contributions from the 13th Dalai Lama and the Russian Buddhist. His Holiness the Dalai Lama's teachings at the request of the Russian Buddhist began in the year 2009. His Holiness the Dalai Lama expressed deep condolences for Tengboché Rinpoche Nawang Tenzing Zangpo, who had recently passed away in Namchi Bazar, Nepal at the age of 86. In his condolence letter to the Tengboché Monastery Shangha, His Holiness addressed them as Sherpa brothers and sisters and advised that although Rinpoche is no longer with us, the best tribute we can pay to him is to cultivate the quiet, steady, warm-heartedness he so vividly exemplified. Right after the report of Lamu's death and her brother Tharpa still in Chinese custody for sending money to their relatives in India, we have received yet another report of Lundup Thakpa, a popular Tibetan singer from Kamdhiru in Nakchu, who had been sentenced by the Chinese authorities to 6 years in prison for singing songs criticizing China's repressive policies in Tibet. According to sources, the 36-year-old singer from Dhiru County, Nakchu, in the so-called Tibet Autonomous Region, was detained in May 2019, within 2 months after the release of his latest song, Black Hat. The head of the Human Rights Desk of the Department of Information and International Relations says Tibetans exercising their basic freedom and rights are severely mistreated by the Chinese authorities.
Various of human rights are violated without a single question or doubt by the Chinese government. For example, right when a Tibetan political prisoner Tibetan is arrested, he or she will not know for what reason they are being arrested, and neither does his or her family members will receive an arrest warrant. It will be months or even years later that their family members will know the reason for their family members' arrest.
To mark global solidarity for Tibet and celebrate His Holiness's worldwide influence, the Tibet Museum is producing a display made up of photographs created by you.
From early 1990s, China launched a patriotic re-education campaign. Under this campaign, the display and possession of His Holiness photograph is completely banned. Till today, if anyone found with His Holiness photographs, they are sentenced to varying degree of 10 to 15 years. So Tibet Museum, as a mark of solidarity with the Tibetan inside Tibet, as well as protest against this China's harsh policy, we launched a campaign where people can submit their photographs with His Holiness photo, and we plan to display those photographs in our new museum, which is very soon to be launched in early 2021.
The selfies will feature in a floor-to-ceiling selfie wall in the section dedicated to His Holiness in the new Tibet Museum, due to open in 2021 in the administrative heart of the Central Tibetan Administration, Ganjen Keshong Dharamshala. The campaign is open to both Tibetans and non-Tibetans. Professor Lau Hanxiang argued that in the ancient Chinese historical documents shows Tibet right after Japan and Korea as the foreign country. Professor Shang said these documents are available on the internet and were published between the Yuan Dynasty and Republic of China, and later republished and reprinted by People's Republic of China.
The PRC, to maintain its respectability, cannot admit that the annexation of Tibet in 1950 was a new conquest. It's not like we can say, Alexander the Great conquered people, but no, you cannot do that in 1950, okay? So it has to be legitimized as a unification of an old territory. And a lot of patriotic Chinese, actually, today they are unaware of this this logic of this argument, and they still go around telling people that, so what, yeah, we conquered Tibet fair and square.
Professor Shang was invited to speak on topic Status of Tibet during Ming Dynasty by the Office of Tibet, Washington, D.C. on its virtual discussion. Professor Lau is an esteemed Chinese-American scholar who devoted his retired life doing intense research on the status of Tibet and wrote his historical book titled Tibet Was Never Part of China Since Antiquity. The Ministry of Culture of Taiwan organized a two-day seminar on the history and preservation of Tibetan and Mongolian culture on Saturday last week. The event, titled Cultural Youth Volunteer Training Camp, was organized through the ministry's Mongolian and Tibetan Cultural Center. Representative Tsering of Office of Tibet, Taiwan was invited to speak on Tibet and the prevailing situation inside Tibet. The seminar aims to promote Mongolian and Tibetan cultures, enhance cultural exchanges among Taiwan and Mongolian and Tibetan students, and encourage grassroots preservation of the cultures. At the invitation of Consul General of the Kingdom of Netherlands, St. Francisco, Representative Ngodup Tsering virtually attended Michael Van Val's knighthood ceremony on 29 October at the St. Francisco Consulate. Michael's book, The Status of Tibet, became a standard reference on the historical and political conditions in Tibet under international law, an enormous contribution and eternal help to Tibet. Michael Van Val spoke about how he was involved with the issue of Tibet when he was barely 11 years. So much for today. See you next time and have a great weekend.